Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cannabis Accounting Podcast. Today I have with me Scotty, OK rapper Scarano, um, CPA turned a rapper, owner of his own accounting practice. And there's a few other titles there I want to throw in there, but I'll kick it over to you, Scott, to introduce yourself and kick this
Yeah,
off.
clarify EA, not CPA, but in the realm, in that sphere. My EA is probably not even active anymore, so you can just go by OKR. That'll be the acronym that we use. Yeah,
No
yeah.
judgment here.
I have been running my practice. My practice is running without me now, and that's been going on for about the last 5 years, I would say. Um, I have been running it for about 10 years prior to that. And yeah, so I run a practice. I also do this rap thing. Most recently, I'm also making music videos with my kids with a lot of my downtime. So
I do like
young
those
time with
music
them is precious.
videos.
I got three kids. Yeah. So the time with them is pretty precious. These are time capsules that we're building together. So yeah, but
Nice. So father, EA, practice owner, and I like the idea of you. Like everybody wants to get the practice to a point where it runs itself, but they forget it takes 10 years to get there. But then you can get there. So and we'll talk about that part of your story, but backing it up a little bit to just your origin story, just kind of tell us a little bit about Scotty as a kid. What made you interested in becoming an accountant, and how'd you bridge that
aha,
gap from
yeah.
no kid wakes up and says they want to be a tax
I
CPA.
did though. I did when I was younger. My grandfather had a CPA firm, and that was I saw
Nice.
as a sign of success. He was successful. He raised three kids, and I always saw that was imprinted on me from a young age. So I wanted to be an accountant, but I also wanted to be like an actor or an entertainer. Wanted to do something along that realm. But accounting was always like my safest bet because I was good in math. I always did very well in math, so that was my safe bet. Worked very hard to get into a good college. Got into UNC, and I was going to major in accounting. It's UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina. This is where I live. That's where I grew up. That was my heart because Michael Jordan, because
Yep.
that was the school, and I wore Carolina blue every day. And then I got into the school, and then I was looking at all the business classes, and they were all super early, and I was like questioning my the rest of my life at that point. I'm like, do I want to wake up early the rest of my life? And changed my major, changed it to communications early in college. Also got into selling dope. So shout out to Dope CFO. Shout out to all the cannabis shops. Well, I was selling cannabis. I was also selling some other dope. Um, I was gonna make movies. I had a TV show in the works at the school. I was taking screenwriting classes. I was also selling dope, and I quit the accounting altogether, put it in my rear view, and well, fast forward to I got arrested. That didn't really work out. The whole dreams of becoming a rapper back then got kind of put aside. I got arrested. I did some time. I was like working my way back to regular, like, now I got to go back to school. So I went back to school, majored in accounting. So
Nice.
rewind back, I could have skipped that period and just said I finished the accounting because I did. I just finished at a different school and took all the lessons I learned from running a business, from running that business. It was pretty successful until I mean, it also was illegal at the time too. So I was I was learning a lot about running a business, running that business. um, because I applied a lot of those lessons to running my firm. Fast forward later to running my firm, and the things that I learned running that business, I applied to running the practice. And we can talk about that too. But otherwise, people are people and sales are sales. And so,
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, like starting out, what was your first job after college? Because obviously, it's like now you got something on your record, and it's like, ah, shit. Now I gotta like kind of
for
explain
sure.
this
It
to
was
get
hard.
into the
It,
CPA
it was
space.
very hard.
Yeah.
So great question. I waited a lot of tables and I was working at my parents have um, they sell accounting software for nonprofits too. So on the side, I was also learning about accounting while I was in school for it, while I was working for them and helping them with data conversions. They would get people off of QuickBooks and onto their software. So I was learning about QuickBooks, also learning about the software that they sold. They had a payroll module, so I was learning about payroll while I was waiting tables and going to night school or going to school to finish up, get my accounting degree. Um, I
Okay.
got an internship through my dad through, and I was still going to get my CPA. This was going to be a very uphill battle, but I would have been able to get it, and I knew the path to getting it. I got internship at a CPA firm, larger CPA firm I worked at. Um, that went really well. I took to doing taxes. I really liked doing taxes. It was like something that it just clicked. It was like putting puzzles together. So I did a lot of overtime. I was working hourly doing those jobs. I through that connection, I got another CPA internship that turned into a job. And I was
Nice.
offered a job there in their audit department. And not long after that, I got fired from that job.
What'd you get
Be,
fired for?
I was listening to my headphones. I was listening to music, and they said I couldn't listen to music during the audit. And then after the audit partner left, I went and put my music on again, and I was defiant. Um, I
Hey,
tried to get a
rules is
job, but
rules, Scotty. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know. I did not follow the rules. I never did follow the rules, and then led me to another job. So one job, my felony got in the way. It was principal financial. I was going to work as like insurance, like I was about to get promoted. I was a temp there, and I was going to get promoted to this financial analyst. And then I told them about my background, and immediately they had my shit packed the next day. Like no questions asked. I was about to get a promotion, and instead gone. So
Yeah.
corporate world wasn't for me. So then I was
Hmm.
at one of these crossroads where I could have taken a job at another CPA firm. I had another CPA job too, and another audit department didn't really work out. I wasn't cut out for audit. Is the bottom line of that. And then it was like job opportunity I had at this smaller firm. They were doing government audits or something like that. They were going to pay me pretty well. Um, let's say like real numbers, hard numbers. They were going to pay me about 60,000, maybe 60 or 70. And this other job and some benefits. And then this other job was like small guys, one man shop. He had some interns helping him, and he was just doing write up for the tax return. He was doing tax returns. It was basically like a tax shop. It was a franchise too, Paget Business
Nice.
Services. I'm going into the interview thinking Paget Business Services, thinking this is another recruiter, another headhunter. And then as he's talking to me, he's got this comfortable life. He's about to retire. He's got X number of clients. He's doing like maybe close to 100,000 like tops. He was going to pay me not that much, but he gave me this opportunity during the interview. He said, like, you could be running this in 5 years. This could be all yours, kind of thing. And that sparked my interest a little bit. I was like, oh, he's probably going to start me out at like 40,000, not that much. Um,
But it's a tough decision, right? Because it's like the trade-off, the upside's much higher, but your starting pay is lower, or you can go for the sure thing, which most CPAs do.
yeah, yeah. And I had a young kid too at that point. So I took that job with the upside, with thoughts of the upside. And he immediately had me go into sales, and he sent me to the franchisor in Athens, Georgia. I drove down there um, and got some sales training. Oh, God, the stuff that I learned there, because this is like a 50-year-old franchise, stuff that I learned there.
What year
And
was it?
this was 2010,
Okay.
maybe. And around 2010, um, I'm asking them about the internet and about marketing and doing, like they're telling us to go door to door.
In 2010. Yeah, that's old
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I did door knocking around that time. I was out in Colorado selling internet to door in Denver. It was wild times, but it was a good
I
time.
did probably for a season. I did that. I did the stuff that they told me to, but on the side, I was also building a website, building our Google page and getting the Google like pin number and doing all that stuff on the side. The question I asked during the sales training was like, so what about our websites? Aren't people looking for accountants on Google, like online? Like that's what everybody's like, that's what I
That's
thought
what I
everybody
do.
was doing. And they were like, no, they don't look for accountants online. You got to go in and talk to them, beat the street, whatever it was. And I called bullshit on that, and I started doing things differently. Um, and and it was working out. We were getting a ton of leads just from getting that Google pin and getting a couple reviews. And all of a sudden, boom, um, we were getting a ton of inbound leads, and I didn't need to go door to door. So I bought the business in 2015, and I grew it from his 100,000 to maybe five or 600,000 when I bought it from him. And mostly
Nice.
that was with because my head was in the clouds, and he was paying me very fair. It was all working out very well in the beginning and throughout to the point where I bought it because we were doing a profit share. I was running the books too, and I was building our customer base. I was offering them new services. I started adding payroll, started doing he was doing like after the fact payroll and stuff like that. But then I started doing live payroll and adding that to a lot of our clients. And it was just I was bringing in a lot of new business and also started finding some cloud apps. So, sorry, I'm gonna grab some.
Nice. No, it's such an interesting time frame you're going through, like 2010, 2015, because it's like there was a lot of change that went into like the for sure the accounting profession during that time frame. Like I still remember one of my first I wasn't an intern, but like my first year, I would take paper tax receipts and scan them in to digitize them because they were kind of going through this like process.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. I helped go through that process with this office.
we'll continue the
Um,
story. So 2015, you're buying it, you're adding payroll, you're adding more solutions, you're no longer just a tax return mill.
Yeah,
What
yeah. So
happens around
10 to 15
2015?
was a lot of change and a lot of
Okay.
stuff happening behind the scenes that I was doing and adding. And he didn't really want much to do with that. He was off at his beach house as I was growing the firm. So it wasn't like any sort of resentment where he didn't tell me no to anything I wanted to do. He let me do whatever I wanted, and it always worked out. It was like he took a bet on me and just it worked out in his favor extremely. And I had this system to build on top of. So I had a good foundation. It was good, solid systems that they were using at the franchise that I was able to build on top of and do my thing and
Nice.
grow. So from when I bought it from 15, if we're just talking growth, the still rapid growth from the 500,000 to then we got to a million pretty quickly after that, maybe 2 years. We had hit a million or we hit 1.2 million. That's the magic number. That's the number that we eventually just stalled out on as I was trying to grow the practice. I was, I didn't know I was in the way, but I was in the way of growing it larger than that, or from it just from anything happening. I was the bottleneck.
And
I
in
was an
what ways were
accountant
you the
turned into a
bottleneck to the continued growth?
well, I would want to change things. So I'd want to completely do something new. We're now going into this lane and we're going to start servicing this type of client, or we're going to do this, or maybe we're going to go into this niche, or maybe we're going to start doing, budgeting and forecasting and like other advisory services for clients. Meanwhile, my team's trying to keep up with all the new business that I'm taking on because I'm saying yes to everything too. So I'm doing all the sales, and every new opportunity that comes in, I'm also saying yes to. So while I want to build out these other side things with our practice, I'm like also creating bottlenecks because they can't onboard fast enough because now we got to take on this foreign entity because they found us online, and now we do that niche too. So all kinds of things. I'd lose people, we'd lose clients, and then we'd hire more people, get some energy back in, get some more clients, and then same thing would kind of happen again and again. That was those that was that time period, maybe 2015 through 2020. That's what happened. We grew out of our office that we were in, moved into a much larger office. I had all people on site working for me. At one point peaked at like 12 people. Um, yeah.
Dang, that is a sizable office. Just having everybody come in, some kind of, and dude, because we lived through that, and like we talked to a lot of accountants. That is kind of the proverbial thing of like, we hope we can get in more clients, then hire to backfill that, and then it's just this like step ladder of more clients, more team, more clients, more team. But as you know, like that's never a perfect step ladder. And so I guess like, how did you break that cycle where it sounded like you were get a client, lose some of them, get some staff, lose some of them, and you're hovering around 100K per month, and it's like, all right, like how do I get to the next phase? Like what was kind
Yeah,
of the
yeah. So we
breakthrough?
started doing EOS somewhere in the middle there too.
Okay,
And
that's the
EOS
entrepreneur operating system.
entrepreneurial operating system. We had an implementer. We had somebody that was like coaching us, helping us go through it. Every quarter, they'd meet with us and set our goals and stuff. And all of it in theory was great. And all of it was like going to work out. And I just still kept getting in the way, not really knowing it. It wasn't until COVID. So COVID was the catalyst or the thing that changed everything because I was in Mexico and I stayed in Mexico and I let everything happen here. We weren't
Nice.
quite remote yet, but we could have been remote before COVID. We could have fully been remote. People wanted to work at home and I wouldn't let them. It was like I told them they could work maybe 1 day a week, 2 days a week at home, but they got to be in the office. And then COVID,
So you grew to become the authority that you used to hate, Scotty. What a
I
shame. You're over there
did
forcing people to come into the office in 2017.
making them
Like,
wear polo shirts and
I'm
shit. What
just
the hell is
joking.
going on here?
But
That's
what,
what
wait, so what
happened.
part of Mexico were you in during COVID?
So my wife's from Mexico. We go there every year, and this year something was that year something just felt like it was brewing, and we booked the trip early. My kids were in all in year round school, so their school had breaks during that time frame, and we were
Nice.
going to go up there March of 2020. And typically we did that in the off seasons because tickets are cheaper and it was just better time to go, and we could stay for 3 or 4 weeks, no problem. That was when I was experimenting with taking time off and away, being away during a tax season too. I
Okay.
was still going to be reviewing returns and working from there, but it was going to be like, not that much, not as much as other years, let's say. And I was ready to work there remotely, and I knew something was happening because they were talking about an epidemic at that time, and we knew the choice to go there would be like we'd be away from all of this craziness maybe because there is like the country. So Veracruz, to answer your question, it's Pisa Flores is the name of the village, very small village, a couple
Nice.
thousand people, and it's they living off the land there. This is where my wife grew up, and so this is where I had been already been going for the past 10 years. We've been married for 18 years now, so like
Congrats.
we have a house there, and we stayed there, and then as everything blew up, beginning of COVID exploded, everything happened, we were there. So we were outside of all of it. And I had this clarity. And I was running the firm from there. I told everybody to work from home. They didn't have to go back to the office. We stayed there for the larger part of COVID, beginning for sure during the lockdown. We stayed there and the kids got to play outside and they didn't have to like stay inside and shit. It worked
Hmm.
out pretty good. And I also was like, got my mind right about actually entrusting the team to do things. And we got some PPP money around that time too. So I was experimenting with hiring more people doing the stuff that I was doing
Right, right.
and
You're like
completely
Ken.
got out of it, overhired. And then during that time period, like 2021 ish, I had started like I overhired and we hit a point where we were losing money as a firm because I had these two new remote people. I was back home at the time. We had come back from Mexico, two new CPAs, um, and fully remote, not going back to the office. We had sold the office. I might have started doing the podcast at that point. It was Sons of CPAs then, but that was the podcast. And
Nice.
I was almost completely removed. And I see the firm is not profitable. And after we cut all the expenses of the office and everything, we just had too many employees, and they couldn't onboard fast enough. I was just still doing I was doing sales at that point still too, and so we had to let a couple people go. We let the old office people go, and we kept the new people because they were fresh, they were new, they were younger, and I had somebody that was just a front office lady, basically the front office person that we still managed to keep on and like pay her to work from home, but it just didn't need her anymore. Everything was automated and there was nobody coming in and out of the front door to like, you could wait in the front, give them the mints and things. And so
Yep.
like that person, we know we tried to do as much admin and fun things with her as we could. So we had to let her go. And then we had somebody too that was like part of the team, but just didn't work out remotely. Like he couldn't, it just wasn't like it wasn't a fit anymore. And this is somebody that unfortunately we had to let somebody else go in order to keep up with the payroll, everything else. So we let two people go. And And that was a big change because my team let them go. So it was my management team that was now running the firm that did the letting go of those two. They wanted to take it upon themselves. That's when I knew I could really trust them with everything. And that's when I really let go of any vines that were holding me to the firm. And I let them run it. And from that point forward, they've been running the firm without me. I had trained them how to do sales. We figured out the commission structure, and now they're getting paid to handle all of sales as well. Caveat, we have not grown at all from the point we're at about 1.5 million. We've got to maybe 1.7, especially with ERC and things like that. It boosted us up to close to 2 million, but now we've kind of like come back down to earth.
Yep.
Um, it's not necessarily growing without me, but it's running pretty smoothly without me um, right
And a
now
lot of
today.
people would like that life. What am I of the of the 1.5 million? How many clients is that on? Do you have like 100 plus, 200
100,
plus?
about 110, 112, give or take. It hovers, it's attrition right now. So whenever we lose a client or two, that's when like all of a sudden we happen to they find a couple that fit, it's inbound leads still coming from different software directories that we're in and Google and things like that. That's how all of our people are finding us. So yeah,
Oh, nice. And man, that's such an interesting story. Just kind of to back it up a little bit, I have a few doors open in
sure.
my head I want to close because it COVID was very interesting where I think people under appreciate just how impactful it was to working remotely. And for me, it's I'm more into that world because I saw my first digital nomad. I was in Thailand at a Koh Samui at a full moon party like 2012, 2013, and like you were a digital nomad if you had a laptop and worked in other countries while you traveled. Like nobody did that. Like
Yeah.
working remote wasn't even like a vernacular, like it wasn't a common phrase. And so I think that was a fascinating where it's like nowadays, like work remote is so common, there's a word for it, work remote. And it's like it used to be like very bohemian counterculture, alternative culture. Like, yeah, there's like this marketing guy, he kind of works for the company, but he like works remote and he's always traveling around. And it was very taboo. Whereas like that has 100% changed in like 3 years where it's like no longer like because I still have my backpacker buddies and they are like they are not corporate people.
No,
Let's just say that. And
no, for
so
sure.
I think that's kind of fascinating how COVID has just like forced so many accounting firms to either figure it out or go out of business because like the other CPAs are no longer going to go to an office in Milwaukee, Wisconsin or Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. It's like I'll just go work remote and then do what I want. So it's from your perspective, kind of how has COVID and just how has working remotely changed how accounting firms are built, and how has working remotely changed kind of how you lead your teams from kind of like your lived experience?
Yeah, yeah. So it changed everything for me. It changed my whole worldview. I didn't like it, or at least I didn't like it in the context of doing work. I missed going into the office. I missed having that separate place to go to. I have a basement that I go to, but that turned into my studio for my podcast, and I started doing all my extracurricular activities with that. I
Yep.
couldn't ever get back to work mode. That's also helped me too. That was my context shift that I needed to then not be in the firm, always in it, right? My team
Okay.
loves it. Well, so I would say half and half. Not half and half, but sometimes they say they miss the office
Of
and they
course.
miss that. Sometimes they say that, but they don't really want to go back. Nobody really wants to go back to that.
Well, people want options, and that's
Yeah.
the correct word. It's like because I don't have an office. Like we're completely digitally native at Dope CFO. Like I was just chatting with my team before this. Love Andrew and Christy, but he's in Oregon, Christy's in California. So like we get together like once a year. Then we have other strategic events, but we don't have an office. But a really good friend of mine works for a tech startup here in Milwaukee. Classic like tech office with Star Wars memorabilia, skateboards everywhere, ping pong tables, a bar, and like
Sounded like our office in some
yeah,
aspects.
yeah.
That's what
So
I
like
tried
some
to do with our
offices.
office, with the in office. I tried to make it like forward tech, like fun.
I like that. I like that. So I guess what about like your workforce, kind of like hiring and whatnot? Like, have you seen a noticeable change in the talent, the
Yes,
desires for
yeah.
people
So
who
we've
want to?
gone Philippines. I didn't get to that part of the story.
Oh, I'll carry on.
Yeah. So we peaked at about 12 people in office, but since we've been remote, now we've been growing with people in the Philippines, and the remote people here we were getting better quality people and better quality, especially for the bookkeeping and lower work. For all the early work that we're doing and all the grunt work and the things that, you know, somebody's got to get done that we're usually having bookkeepers do here, we've been hiring out for that. So we've got almost five, I think we have 4.5 people in the Philippines, not a half a person, but you know what I mean.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
and and we're doing more work than we were with them than we were doing with the people here. They're more efficient, they're more effective. So we have been growing. It's just now fully remote worldwide, right? Um, they're integrated. They're part of our team. They're on our team page now too. It's like we treat them as part of our team. They're just different time zone, different pay scale for sure. Um, and but yeah, they're speaking the same language when it comes to all the work that they're doing, all the accounting and everything.
And even English is a second language, like it's pretty good. Because it is interesting. There's so much like love hate with like offshoring and whatnot. And like for me, like because I came from like a global accounting team before I started my own business, it's like, well, yeah, it's business is global. It's 2020. I don't know, whenever I started,
Yeah.
2018. It's like, yeah, it's like there's business, we're global, we have the internet, we can communicate. Like I have an accounting team in Mexico, an accounting team in Bratislava, an accounting team in Shanghai. And that's kind of how we break down the world. And then you learn about chartered accountants and just like there's like CPAs just act like they're the end all be all of like planet Earth accounting and finance. And it's like, no, like you can go to Europe, there is tons of elite intelligent finance people, South Africa, Philippines, Mexico. Like accounting is accounting regardless of what country you're in. Like debits always equal credits, balance sheet, income
I think
statement,
what
cash
held a lot of
flow.
people back was what their perceived customer perception would be, what they thought their customers would think, and what they thought their clients would think of
Yes.
outsourcing the work. And it started getting to me because I have someone who works for me from India. She lives here. She's a CPA. She's been on my team, you know, over 8 years now. And people would get upset because they thought I hired somebody in India because when she
Yeah.
was remote, they thought she was calling in from India and stuff. And I
Yep.
and that got to me because I'm like, she's right down the road. Like if that's going to happen, I might as well hire people from anywhere.
That's fascinating, right? Because like they're gonna make their assumptions regardless. And we have I think two people on my team that like English is they're CPAs, they've been here for 20, 25 years, but one grew up in Bangladesh and another one grew up in I feel bad, but
Not
somewhere
too
in
many people
Asia.
are going to complain about that though. I want to
Yeah.
clarify. Some people do, but most people don't. And
Okay,
most
that's kind
people
of what I was
don't
gonna say.
care.
Like outside of that one weird client, like did you get a lot of pushback from clients about like offshoring or working
No.
with talent otherwheres?
Not at all. But that was the one point where I realized first, not nobody's ever really said that too. And then second, I don't give a shit what this person thinks.
Yeah.
And if they, you know, like honestly, like this is so even if a client does care, we're we're talking about at that level. Like so at this point, it's like let's just go all in on what makes sense and what we should do. And that's when I started. We started, I think, with a EA or VA and
Yep,
maybe
start
one
small.
bookkeeper. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Did you go through like an agency in the
yeah,
Philippines?
so it
Nice.
was Double Rule was the name of it. We found them through some of my connections at Zero, and they got bought by the Back Room, and that's who we use now. They're based in Australia, Australia, New Zealand, and the whole team though is Philippines. So
Nice. That's what I like too is like people they get again like I think that's the big picture is like we always think our clients are going to push back and I kind of similar to you it's like well the ones who get it they just know that talent lives anywhere so they're not going to care like the ones that are like good clients probably don't care because they just want good work and they know good work comes from every country it's just people are all the same and then they really care because they're just like too stressed out about it which in my mind I can tell like I know this avatar it's like also I probably don't even want you as a client and it's like if you're gonna be upset because like somebody on my team has an accent whether they're an American you're just gonna assume they're not anyways and so it's like the ones who care we don't really care about and the ones who don't care it's like we want anyways so it's kind of like a not it's a win-win
yeah,
um and I
once
would
you
say the
get
talent
beyond,
is there.
but you got to get past yourself. Whatever your concerns about it are, that's what you got to get past. And that's what I always learned every layer, every step along the way was just
Because what
get.
was your concerns like when you didn't want people outside of the like you wanted everybody in the office? Like, did you just think kind of like they just wouldn't focus at home or? Kind of what was your
Yeah,
thought?
I just thought they wouldn't get anything done at home, and maybe it's because I was projecting my own like insecurities or like what I thought I couldn't get done at home. If I couldn't do it, then that's I was projecting it and nobody could. Is
That's
kind of what
fair.
my thought process was. Um, or maybe just more control. When you see everybody there, you see that they're working, you can put something on somebody's desk and explain it to them when they're there, and you can't do that like remotely. So it's a lot of that stuff was just more friction because you had to plan more and you had to be more
Yeah.
like thoughtful about everything you did, and it couldn't just be spontaneous. Like client drops all this stuff off, drop it on somebody's desk and tell them to add it, and then they just put it on their pile of things that they're doing, especially with tax returns and stuff.
Hmm.
So, you just can't get out of that system once you're in it. Like, that's hard.
That's what I was gonna kind of ask, like kind of from the client side, because I remember that's always the pushback. Well, like, yes, I'm the CPA, EA, I can figure out how to become digitally native and like step into modern world and use technologies, but it's the clients who struggle. So I gotta maintain some archaic workflows and archaic systems to receive paper documents. Kind of how did you live through that transition? Like, what was your experience like educating your clients of like, we're no longer dropping off paper,
Right.
Steve. You gotta send me your stuff electronically.
Right. Because that's what this was built on too. This franchise was built on like the pickup drop off, and that's what the old owner was doing.
Yeah.
And so getting some of the people to change was not easy, and they wouldn't. So we just let them stay doing things the way they wanted to do. And we still have one person that we kind of pick up his stuff. It's probably down to every quarter, and one person at the office now just grabs it and scans all of it in. But like exceptions are made because people are loyal and you want to keep everybody
Yeah.
happy and that kind of stuff. But eventually, as we changed our pricing structure, a big turning point was changing the way that we billed for tax returns and billing them up
Nice. Yeah. How
front.
did
We
you
would
switch up the
lose.
billing?
Oh, that was tough. The years and years of doing that. But early on, it was just we were going to bill up front too, so we didn't have anybody saying that they would pay with their return and all that. Trying to get people to pay up front for their return
Okay.
was like,
Yeah.
did we think we were going to leave money on the table because we weren't billing it after, and we saw these extra schedules and other things like that? So those were some of our concerns. We also just didn't want to deal with any AR anymore. So that was another. It took a couple of seasons to get that all done, and some people, it's very few, but some people just didn't want to pay up front. They wouldn't do it, and like client to client basis, we either just stood our ground and said no, you have to, or we kind of let them eventually those phased out because eventually we just stopped catering to individuals altogether and started making everything structured around the ideal client that we wanted and the ideal business. And so this was,
Yeah.
we were going to service and package everything together for the business and include the tax return. So we wanted to sell
Mhm.
them everything. And that was our method of like growth was these businesses that are a million and up or around that size or getting there, they want all of that stuff done turnkey. They want us to do their tax return. They want us to do their books, everything else behind the scenes. If something comes up, they want us to handle it. They want us to do the payroll. And we came up with like an average price for that. And that's what I would say we've been managing and running on since then. Um, we very rarely sell just individual tax return anymore
What
because we
year was
know
that you kind of packaged it all together, they offer?
that started happening 2020.
Respect.
Yeah.
Because
And
it all
so,
feeds like one hand washes the other. Like, good luck filing a tax return without financial statements.
yeah.
Can't do it. And like, I swear to God, tax CPAs don't understand that. It's like, they just like, I don't want that. I just want to sell taxes. It's like,
So
dude,
we
you are
always did
leaving.
everything. We just didn't require all of it. And we didn't
I
like,
didn't get paid for it as much
yeah,
as you should.
we always did it, or we would end up doing the books last minute because they said they had somebody else doing the books or whatever. So it wasn't until like 2019, 2020 that we started saying we're going to start billing up front for everything. And we really changed the way we build too. And thanks some of that to just different billing systems, we started using Ignition, maybe 2016, 17, and changing the way we did the new proposals. We included the tax rate. So one year we had people double paying for their return. And that was tough. I remember having these conversations over and over. We still do to this day, especially taking on new clients. How do we handle the double year? Because we got them paying for the year that they need us to do that return. And then now we're bundling it in to everything. So that was a tricky situation to navigate, and we managed to do it over all of our clients. We did it in phases though. So but
Ah,
now everybody's paying up front. It's just hard when we take on a new client because now we have the year 2025 and we got to
coming
do all
up.
your stuff for this year. And now we're going to do the tax return of 2025 and 2026. You're going to be paying for the tax return we do for 2026 in 2027. So like now we got sort of an overlap and we got to, so this is still a tricky part about the way we do our billing. And this is still something that I'm trying to figure out.
When you say billing all up front, is it all like a one-time fee or is it upfront of the month or the quarter that's coming
So
up?
if we're talking about back work and the way that we price it, then we price everything based on all the work we're going to do for that year. And usually, if it's early in the year, we've got a monthly price, and they're just paying that monthly. Um,
Yeah.
if they're coming on as a client, we need to do prior year returns. We just bill all for that separately. So any prior years that we need to do to change, and then any back work that we need to do, we just bill for that separately too. So there's this onboarding amount for
Yeah,
this
no, we deal
back
with that too. It's
yeah,
I don't have an
that's
answer
tough.
too. It's like, I don't know, you should have done your 2024 financial statements during the year of 2024. And now you need me to file the taxes. So I'm going to pay
Yeah,
you to catch all that up, but we also got to get 2025 going because your investors are going to get upset if you don't start giving them reports from 2025. And it's like, we just kind of make it two separate engagements and it's
yep.
just
And
is
so
what it
sometimes they're
is.
paying for those two separate engagements monthly too. So like they have
Save
this
money.
amount that they're paying off over a certain period of time. So we're trying to work with them to make it affordable too. But like also like it's just the way it goes for new clients. Clients that are on that have been working with us, it's great because they're just
Yeah.
paying a monthly
Yeah. Make
subscription.
it easy.
Yeah.
Yep. And then to your point, it one hand washes the other. It's like it's easier for me to like do the taxes every month and quarter, and then when I gotta close the books at the end of the year, it's not this big 12-month recreation of everything. It's just kind of another month, another quarter.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's when they're already onboarded and we've gone through the cleanup and all of that tough stuff. Um, Kind of thinking through just I don't know why this came to mind, but just like the work-life balance question, because I feel like you like worked at CPA firms traditional, you've started your own, obviously you've like led teams of people like just from purely like a business ownership, like you're going independent, you're going to start your own firm. Like what are your thoughts on the work-life balance? Like do you think it's a myth? Do you think it's obtainable? Should it be a goal? Should it not be a goal? Like what do you think about work-life balance? Obviously, yeah, and you're
Mm.
married with kids.
Yeah, yeah. I could either go like full on and say that I'll just give it to you straight. There is no balance with me ever, ever. I never balanced running the firm and family. I always was just living at the firm, living and breathing, running and growing the firm. Ever since I stopped doing that, I haven't even touched it. And I've just been living at home, living and breathing and doing everything at home and being present and being there with the kids and stuff. I didn't balance it, you know. If I want to go back to work or do something and go back to like growing a business, that's going to be tricky to try to find that balance. And I think that's what I have to do in this next phase because I was all in on stuff. We didn't even talk about accounting high, but that's something that I dove into as well. After I phased out of my business, I started doing something else and got really creative with it, became a rapper and started doing that. And there was no balance there either. So I think balance is kind of like if you want to wash through everything and you want to do everything, this is the way my philosophy is. If you want to do everything halfway, you could try to balance your way and wade your way through both. And you may not grow and you may not do something spectacular, but everything's going to be fine and you're going to be happy and content too. With balance, you could be content, you could be really happy, but you're not going to do things spectacular. You're not going to have these amazing highs and or these amazing lows either.
That's a good way to explain it, Scotty. I knew I'd get some gems out of you because it is interesting. Like nothing's right or wrong. It's just how do you want to live your life? And it's like that that mental piece is a real thing. And so it's like if you can kind of calm down a little bit and just maintain everything, like that's all right. There's a lot of mental peace and like contentness that comes. But if you're trying to go all in on either business or family, like you can get some extraordinary things, but you gotta have to trade off somewhere in your life. And
Yeah.
there's only 24 hours in a day.
Only
Um,
24 hours in a day. And if you really want to set out for something and climb a really big mountain and do something big, you're going to give a lot of things up in doing that. There's no way, there's no two ways about it. Whatever that is, if you want to go and do marathons and run and literally climb mountains and do stuff like that, you're going to have to commit to training and you're going to have to get into a lot of your shape, change the way you eat, change the way you sleep, all of that stuff just to be able to do that. And so what are you going to balance? So like, long term, you could be balancing these things out on just bigger scales and be
Yeah.
happy. But some people are happy climbing that mountain. That's what gives them the fulfillment and the joy. But then when they get to the top of the mountain, what happens? Like, you got to find a new mountain to climb.
You got to find a new peak. Kind of thinking about that, kind of switching gears back to the business, because that's why I love the game of business. Because I kind of think it's like, well, there's pretty much endless peaks. Because as big as I am right now, there's like
Just
I already
gonna
know
be
who my
another
target is, who's
mountain.
bigger than
Yeah.
me. And once I get bigger than them, it's like I know who the next target is, or the next summit. But kind of thinking through just client service and whatnot, because again, like a lot of us are serving clients, and again, it's I was the first question was actually regardless if they're businesses or individuals, it's kind of like the same product. But like, what do you do with trouble clients? It's like I just had this conversation this week, and it's
Mm,
like they pay, but they never provide anything on time, and it's like a balancing act. And I kind of just come down
mm,
to like, well, even if they're kind of like shitty clients and they're late on getting us, they're late on paying, it's like, do they respect you? Like, I don't know, as long as they
yes.
respect you and they pay every month just a little bit later, like it, pick your battles. But kind of high level, because I know CPAs struggle to say no, and I'm guilty of it myself. I will work with anybody if they'll pay me, at least at this point in my life. But how do you deal with troubled clients and just kind of trying to either like catch them up to like your SOPs and how you do things, or when do you make that decision to cut a client loose?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it depends on the type of thing that you're willing to put up with. And so we
Okay.
defined that pretty early on. And I always had people like, I remember one time I called everybody in and I had them name their top three clients, their favorite ones, and then their bottom three. They had a lot more fun naming the bottom three. And that got us thinking. And then we started to pull threads of what they didn't like about these clients. And mostly it came down to what you said was like the respect and the respect of their time too. And like following through and being accountable. So we kind of defined that. And that was the first pillar. Obviously, they can pay, the money's got to be green for them to be a client too, and that goes
Yep.
with people paying up front for stuff. So they become a
Yeah.
client if they respect us and all that. We'll put up with other things, like we had one client that's going through some trouble with their business and they couldn't pay our fee, or their payment bounced a couple times. Like we'll put up with stuff like that if they're a good client too. So
Mm,
there are things that we don't put up with, and we fired clients along the way. These are the people that like, especially when it comes to taxes, always chronically late, the same old stories that you hear people complain about. Like those are the things that we tried to get rid of, and we definitely did. Year over year, we'd get rid of those top three. We'd probably get rid of one of those clients,
yep.
and
Okay.
they all see their way to the door once you start changing things, and once you start changing the way you do things. People do find their way to the door too,
Yeah, I was
because
gonna
they
say there's
have to
like a
put up with it.
natural vetting or natural qualifying process that takes place when it's like, well, this is how we receive documents. It's like, I'm sorry, and at DCCA, like we're very flexible, like we're pretty software agnostic, but we are digitally native. It's like, no, like we don't care what you use, but it's got to be cloud based because like I'm not gonna go to your office in Boulder, Colorado to go check this out. Um, so no, that definitely makes sense of just kind of like what are you going to work with or what are you not willing to just have a firm line in the sand. Kind of thinking back to just the sales side and bringing people into your firm because obviously you had to train a few people on your team to do sales similar to yourself. How do you think through sales training is there like a standard this is the sales training then it's ongoing or is it just like once a year? How do you think through what do you
Yeah, I
teach in
haven't
sales
gone through
training
a
and
cycle of people where I've tested out what I did with these two yet. So I have a two-person that's handling it. One of them handles the call, the other one reviews and puts the proposal together, make sure everything's aligned for the workflows. So like there's one behind the scenes and there's one working in the front. Um, and that's sort of how they manage and run the firm too. And the guy, first I had to train some confidence in them and ways that they could get over their fears of everything when it came to sales, because they were afraid of a lot of it. They were afraid they were trying to swindle people, and they were afraid that the tactics, like it was magic the way I did things compared to the way they wanted to approach it. because I treated it with a lot of finesse, and salesmanship is that. That's what that's, it's an act in the beginning, and it's also just the like, you're doing a lot of listening. And so I had to just be on a lot of calls with him and help him and coach him through it. So I didn't come up with a good
Okay.
system. I just tried to get out what was in my head. And now, and that's after plenty of recorded calls and reviews. So it's like going over the tape and
Yep.
reviewing, going after action review and things like that. So that's how we did it. I
Nice.
have not had to train the next person yet. We've not hired anybody for sales. Um, Sometimes I have half a mind to go back into sales if I want to do something in the firm and
Yeah, I was
continue
gonna
to
say, I
grow it.
think that's the most important part. It's
Yeah,
like you can find people to do the accounting and tax returns, but it's way harder to find an accountant who can do sales. So it's like if you have a gift for it, it's like that'll grow your firm. Because it's like bottlenecks exist everywhere. It's either like we're not bringing in enough new sales or the sales that we have are dwindling because they're like going out. But it's like if we're doing good client service, it's just bring in more sales. But easier said than done. Because my next question is kind of like, how do you think through hiring the next person? Because that's kind of comes back to that step ladder approach. Like obviously you got to bring in more work, stretch the current team, but like how much do you stretch the current team before you bring in a new team member to
great
help
question.
service them?
We are at an existential moment right now that I'm pondering the next big change that we make.
Respect your
whether
honesty.
whether I'm around for that change or not, I think it might be around the corner. And that's part of it is all the stuff we've been doing in the Philippines could be done with AI. And so we've got this bottom layer of talent that we used to develop as interns or lower level hires. Eventually they become the front facing. And right now the person that we want to hire here in the US is hard to hire because we want somebody that has experience, that's already worked with clients and that's ready to be client facing. Those are the people that we want to hire here in the U.S. So it's easy to find people in the Philippines. We can just put out a request,
Yep.
boom, you hire some people lower level. But the change that might happen is if this tax on foreign wages is goes into effect. If that's going to, let's just say, I've heard rumors of like 20%. If it's going to cost us 20% more and we can't continue to grow and build out that way, then I got to go back and solve the other problem of now it's hard to find, like, it's easier to find interns and lower level people willing to work. I find kids, students
Yeah.
now, accountants every day that want a job, but we have no
Yep.
way of hiring them. And so I can't help them. But if I'm not going to save the amount of money I am in the Philippines anymore with this tax, and I'm going to start paying a lot more, then I might need to change the way we do that. And then we might need to go back to interns. So the next phase of this might be that we hire
Hmm.
my oldest daughter is in college now for accounting. So maybe we start hiring people her and her age and we start doing interns again and growing them into becoming front facing. And maybe
Right,
we
right.
skip a lot of the training of the grunt work because if AI is going to do it and we don't need the Philippines to do it, then the people we hire, we need to get them in front of clients as soon as we can. That's when I really cared about all this stuff when I was working with clients at that small firm.
Man, and it's so key to get people in front of clients because I kind of even joke like my first year in front of clients versus my second year is like night and day difference. And by the third year, you're leading the team,
Confident.
you're like kind of off and running, and it's like it happens quick, but that's kind of a good thing. It's, I
Reps.
don't know, got to get it
Got to
reps in.
put in the reps. That's the only way to learn. You can give people SOPs and give people training and textbooks and things to learn all they want, but the only way they're going to learn is real world reps.
No, for sure. And it's like, and yeah, sometimes you got to go into a CFO's office and embarrass yourself a little bit. It's like, it's how you learn.
That's okay. That's okay. Everybody's
Totally
going to
okay.
make mistakes and get embarrassed and learn. And that CFO knows because that CFO made mistakes too.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Man, I could stay here and nerd out with you all day, but I want to be mindful of your time, Scott. I'm
sure.
looking forward to seeing you, but just kind of thinking through the rest of 2025 and candidly, like really respect what you're building with your firm and just kind of like the pivots you've made and now like the pivots that, you'll continue to make. But just what are you up to the rest of this year? What has you excited about 2026 and where can people find you?
Aha. So I may start my podcast up again at some point, Accounting High. We'll be able to find me there. There's a lot of content out there that you can find, Accounting High, YouTube or on the podcast players. Um, for me personally, I don't know what's next because I got half a mind to start a new podcast and do something client facing and go back into my firm and start growing that again, because that seems like a healthy thing to grow, thing that's already got some, my team also has been running it without me for a long time, and they could be ready. They are ready now for some equity, some ownership. So I'm working that into this whole next phase too. Whether they're going to buy the whole thing from me and I go off into the sunset and do something else, that's an option as well. I don't know what the next step is though. So
Nice, nice. Man, well, it's good to have options. And I guess like 2026 kind of thinking forward. Are you going to be at any of the I know you said you were going to be at the
yeah.
Zero event. Is there any other events you'll be
So
at?
I'm gonna be at Intuit Connect. I'll be in Vegas next week. This might be out after that, but yeah, I don't know which accounting events I'll be at. I know for sure I'll be in Vegas for AICPA Engage next year. I'm usually on the outskirts of that, hanging around. But yeah, I don't know exactly what my plans are. I don't have any shows yet. My last performance as OKR was at the NAEA Tax Summit in Salt Lake City. So I may be there in Nashville next year, um, doing some tax raps, the tax accountant's anthem, and some other tracks that I have. I did a Nirvana one there. So
I like
yeah,
it. I like it. Well, hopefully I'll see you at your next tour date. Alrighty, my man, Scotty. I'll let you go. You have a good one, my
great.
man. Be well.
Yeah, thanks. Peace out.